Good morning. My name is Catherine Rodriguez. I am the program director at the Clare Boothe Luce Policy Institute. The majority of my time is spent interacting with students like these and students that are seated around the room. And I know at Clare Boothe Luce, we have really heard it all. When it comes to left-wing bias and intolerance, these young ladies have really seen everything. From the halls of academia in the West Coast, the East Coast, Midwest, and the South, these brave young women to my right have been fighting the fight and standing up for conservative principles on their college campuses. And they're here to tell you about that today. It's my pleasure to introduce these ladies to you, many of whom I've known for quite some time and have really gotten to know. First, I have Nicole Poole. Wave, Nicole. This is Nicole. She is a senior at Valdosta State University in Georgia. Next is Andrea Carlson, who is also a senior. She is at the University of Illinois-Springfield. Viktoriya Mukha, who is a senior at University of California in Berkeley, which is I know she's got some interesting stuff to tell you. And Luce Gavit, who is on the end, she has just finished her undergraduate work. She's working on a master's degree at the University of Southern California. I know she's got some really good stuff to tell you as well. So without further ado, I'm going to have them come up and tell you a little about themselves and about their experiences, and then there will be some time for questions. Nicole?
Thank you, Catherine, for that wonderful introduction. Hello, ladies. Hello. As Catherine stated, I am Nicole Poole, and I am a senior double major at Valdosta State University, and I'm the product of liberals. Yes, both of my parents are liberals. So I guess you're wondering why I'm standing before you today as a conservative. Well, let's just say it took courage, faith, and the hand of God. My parents are great people. They're fantastic people. I mean, they have to be to produce a child like me, right? They raised me to have manners, to be independent, to get an education, and pursue my dreams. Everything that you would want for your kids. In fact, they are the only liberals that I would listen to for 21 years. To give you a little background about myself, I'm from Savannah, Georgia, and I am a real-life I didn't know I was pregnant baby. Yes, my mom didn't know she was having me until she was on the delivery table. I share that information with you because I've come to learn that it's had a profound effect on my life, on my decision-making, and the life that I live. It could say that it says many things about me, such as I don't give warning signs when I enter the world, that I'm unpredictable, and I'm not normal. I like the fact that I never do what's expected or I'm not normal, because we have too many people doing that anyways, so why would I want to be the same? That is how I found my way to conservatism, and that is what sustains my conservative beliefs and what will ultimately win this conservative fight. As a child, I was always different. While my cousins were outside playing, I was reading and writing words from the dictionary. I was never normal. Being normal was not a thing for me, and it shouldn't be a thing for you. My parents taught me great work ethics. They told me to get good grades, to go to school, and provide for myself. So when I realized that they affiliated with a party that did not teach those things that they encouraged me to do, I was confused. For a long time, I thought I was a liberal, even though my belief in God said otherwise. I would debate with my peers and discuss important issues, and I would always debate the liberal side. I found out that being a liberal wasn't for me, it was for the people around me. The moment I realized this, I was set free, and I was able to become the unexpected, unpredictable, not normal person I was born to be. My father always knew I would get involved in politics. When I was writing letters and telling him to buy books of marine biology for me, he just knew politics was going to be my thing that I couldn't let go. However, I don't think he intended for me to play for the other team. My unexpected, unpredictable, not normal decision took guts and a little Southern sass to stand up to my father and to the rest of the world. But it happened, and it was completely worth it. When you decide not to be normal or conform to what society expects you to do, a lot of things will happen, things you never expected. For me, it would be the opportunity to stand before you today and share my story, or the occasion like the one I'm about to share with you. Just a couple of weeks ago, I was in my senior seminar class, and my professor asked me the status of an assignment. I told her that the assignment was going well, I just needed to compile my resumes for law school. She asked me what type of law I wanted to practice, and I said something defending religious liberty. She said, "So are you referring to the case in Florida where they wanted to open their meetings with satanic praising?" And I said, "Well, because I'm unfamiliar with that," I said, "Nothing, not like that, but more of the Hobby Lobby case." That's when the conversation turned. She said, "Well, I don't think that is protecting religious liberty. I think that's imposing one's religious views on another." I politely broke it down for her, and I said, "That is not the case." We debated back and forth, and she said, "Well, I think you believe in imposing your religious views on other people." And I said, "No, I do not." She said, "Well, isn't that what racism and sexism and anti-feminism stands for? They put laws in place to protect people from having to comply with other people's beliefs." I said, "Okay, that's true, but look at this. Take religion out of it and look at our college campus. We're dealing with a president who wants to take our Second Amendment right from us. He does not want students to carry guns on campus. So what can those students do? They can comply, they can protest, or they can leave." She said, "Good point. I don't have an argument for that." I share this story because being a conservative wasn't written for me. It wasn't something that I was immersed into, and it wasn't something my parents preached. But I am a part of it, and in many cases, the leader of it. Standing up to my professor in class took me not being normal or not wanting to conform to society. Normal people don't do that. They don't debate their professors, they don't write articles, and they don't talk about beliefs that the media would have you believe is very outdated. But the truth is, being normal is outdated. You can't be normal when the world is changing before your very eyes. I didn't decide to be a conservative because it was popular, but because it's right. And I know my faith in God is what promotes what is right. For me, there is no turning back. There has to be a time in our lives where we decide that there is no other option. And there isn't in this political fight. Frederick Douglass once said, "I am a conservative, a black dyed-in-the-wool conservative, and I do not intend to affiliate with any other party besides the party of progress and freedom." He had the right idea. My parents may not have been conservative, and it may take a long time before they are, but I am, and I will always be conservative, because the conservative principles have stood the test of time and proven to be the right path in my life. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Andrea Carlson, and I'm a student at the University of Illinois-Springfield. As a conservative on my campus, I have faced my fair share of challenges. Although many universities love to boast that they are the hubs of diversity and free speech, this is sadly not true. As a first-generation American who loves both civil liberties and economic freedom, I've always had a hard time keeping quiet about what I believe in. When I started my political science courses at my school, I knew that I had to stick up for my conservative beliefs. I felt compelled to speak up against professors who offered their opinions as facts. I've taken quite a few courses, but in particular, my international relations course, where I had a professor who, despite the fact it was an international relations course, took the time to talk about how Obamacare was such a great thing and why, if you opposed it, you were such a heartless conservative. Now, I've sat through lectures and other classes where professors have belittled and mocked conservative beliefs for being obsessed with their guns and their freedom. And frankly, I cannot stand this. So I decided to speak out. Many times in my classes, I am a lone dissenting voice. When you speak out, you run the risk of being ridiculed and even having your grades reduced. However, from these experiences, I've learned that it is so important to make your voice heard on these campuses and offering a counterpoint to liberal beliefs that are often exclusively offered. These lessons would help me in my next stage of campus activism. Now, many people on my campus know that I'm very passionate about the Bill of Rights. However, they seemed just a little bit surprised when that passion extended to the Second Amendment. Shocking. Just last year, the Illinois legislature caught up with the other 49 states in the union and finally passed concealed carry after the courts ruled that they had to. In light of this exciting turn of events, I worked with the Clare Luce Policy Institute to bring in author, town hall columnist, and gun rights advocate Katie Pavlich to my campus. However, I was not aware of some of the obstacles that I would face when doing so. After I successfully worked with several groups to raise the funds necessary to host the event, I had to ask my school permission to use these funds, which I had raised. That was interesting to me. Additionally, I had to jump through administrative hoops and paperwork all along the way. I had to receive permission to sign the contract that would allow Katie Pavlich to speak and supply additional information about my event to the university. Keep in mind, I was receiving $0 from my campus to host this event. I was even asked to produce insurance coverage for her speech. Now, often, insurance coverage is only required when there's an activity that carries some kind of danger, rollerblading, paintballing on campus. I was hosting a speaker. However, I never got a straight, I challenged the administration why I was being asked to produce this. I was never given a straight answer, but with the help of the Clare Luce Policy Institute, that problem was taken care of and I was allowed to host my event. However, it wasn't just the administration that was making it very difficult for me to host Katie on campus. I learned that the campus community was not quite as excited as I was to have her at my school. I had plenty of professors who made it very clear to me that they were vocal opponents of the Second Amendment and gun rights in general. So it was no surprise when I heard faculty and other students comment that I was bringing a gun nut and a conspiracy theorist to my school. Others found it simply appalling that I was bringing somebody on my campus to talk about the importance of concealed carry. But the obstacles did not end there. Despite the fact that I had reserved a conference room well ahead of time, about a month before, and requested the necessary audio equipment, the day of the event, I was left empty-handed with no mics or amplifiers. That was okay, though. Katie remarked that, well, I could speak loud enough for everybody. Despite these challenges, the lecture went wonderfully. Katie spoke to a captive audience of students and community members. Even some of my left-leaning friends and other students from the community attended the speech, and afterwards, they told me that she had made some really good points about firearms and Second Amendment rights. Knowing this made all the difference to me, and it made all the challenges worthwhile because I knew that if I could even change one mind, it was worth it. What I've learned in college is that holding conservative views will always make it harder for you. You'll have to stand up to professors, disagree with your peers, and bear the burden of introducing conservative ideas to your campus. However, it's a burden that I couldn't be happier to bear. It's empowering to stand up for my conservative beliefs, and with the help of the Clare Luce Policy Institute, I know that many young women out there feel the same way. Thank you.
afternoon, everyone. It's such an honor to be here today. My name is Viktoriya Mukha, and I go to University of California, Berkeley. It was a chilly autumn afternoon on the University of Berkeley campus when I walked past a flyer that proved to me that all the rumors that I have heard about Berkeley were still true. The flyer was casually hanging there advertising an event that was co-sponsored by the International Social Organization Student Group. I did a double take at the flyer because there was no way that I had read it correctly. Bay Area Marxism Conference. Marxism. One of the main reasons why my family and I fled from the former Soviet Union was being praised and adored on my college campus. Topics for the event included how will U.S. workers become revolutionary and Marxism and women's liberation. The purpose of the event was to show that, I quote, millions of people have come to the understanding that capitalism does not work for us. I was appalled. After experiencing harsh poverty and rationing of food in the Soviet Union myself, and after hearing stories of my ancestors being taken away to gulags in Siberia just because they disagreed politically with the government, I absolutely could not see how such a way of governing can be praised in the greatest nation ever known to man, let alone on my college campus. My parents immigrated here so that my siblings and I would have an education free of intellectual indoctrination, to have religious freedom, to have political freedom, all of which only come with a capitalist society. Yet here was an American university that would make the Soviet Union communist masters proud. The University of California, Berkeley is known for its remarkable achievements in studies in the field of science, but it is also home to the left-wing free speech movement of the 1960s and some of the most liberal professors and students found in our country. In my political science classes last year, the professors scoffed at conservative values and had great company from the students when doing so. When Valentine's Day came around, tickets to the Vagina Monologues play, a repulsive, hating feminist play that promotes immoral behavior, were sold out in the blink of an eye. In the final days of my spring semester before I left to DC for a summer internship with Clare Luce Policy Institute, I told a small class of mine that I will be interning for a conservative women's organization, and the class started chuckling at the thought that a student from UC-Berkeley was a part of the conservative movement. But I'm here to tell you today that not all hope is lost. One of the saddest things I hear conservatives say about my campus is, well, that's Berkeley for you. Nothing good ever comes out of there. But although Berkeley's liberal student body will always find something to protest about every week in the courtyard, all three of my professors this semester made it clear on the first day of class that they will strive to present the information in the most unbiased way possible, and they have kept their word thus far. We'll see towards the end of the semester. Also, not only did my internship with Clare Luce Policy Institute give me the courage and knowledge to stand up for my conservative beliefs on campus, they helped me in bringing in Bae Buchanan to speak to my political science class of nearly 700 students. Bae Buchanan is the former U.S. Treasurer and a phenomenal conservative woman. And even though there were students who got offended that she called them illegal immigrants instead of undocumented immigrants, my professor told me later on that students would come up to him and said, although we did not agree with her, everything she said, she did bring up very good points and an amazing speaker and brought a fresh perspective to the class. There is progress on the horizon, but there is still a long way to go. I wish that UC-Berkeley was the only liberal campus you would have to hear about, but that's simply not the case in this nation of ours. We must continue to educate this generation on the values of conservatism. Intellectual freedom should be fostered, and the tradition of reasoned scholarship and civil debate should be restored. In America's colleges and universities, we are all in this together. We just have different front lines. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm so glad to be here. I'm Ebiner Gavit, and I graduated last May from the University of Southern California, and now I'm continuing my graduate studies there. I just want to start by saying how grateful I am to have been involved in conservative activism during my undergrad years. It has given me so many amazing opportunities to really just remember my beliefs, to confirm them, and to grow in them. You always hear about how many college students become more liberal during college, but for me, I feel like I became more active in my conservative beliefs, which was awesome. I think it was probably because I recognized that I was one of the only ones who was willing to and able to articulate my conservative beliefs, and so I recognized that I had the responsibility to do so. The most memorable incident that I have experienced regarding the liberal bias among the professors happened last January. I was president of our pro-life club, USC Students for Life, and we had set up a display around the anniversary of Roe v. Wade near the Tommy Trojan statue, which is one of the most prominent spots on campus. The display consisted of 275 white hearts, which stood for the number of children lost to abortion every 2 hours in the United States. There were also some posters, one explaining the hearts, one had a picture of an unborn baby, and one had a phone number with a hotline to call for post-abortion healing. We had reserved the space with the administration, and so I was hoping that everything would be smooth and we would have no trouble. And I made sure to walk past it between classes just to check that everything was still okay. I was taking a gender studies class that semester, and it was part of the university's diversity requirement. It was only the second day of class, so no one knew I was a conservative yet that day. So there I was walking into class a few minutes early, only to see a picture of our display being projected onto the screen from the professor's computer. My first reaction was excitement. I was thinking, yes, we're going to talk about this. I was disheartened, however, when I heard the conversation that was taking place between the professor and some of the other students. The professor was mocking both the display and pro-lifers in general, and the girls were wondering why those who had set up the display weren't there handing out flyers to explain it, and their reasoning was, oh, they must have been too afraid to stick by their display, so they must have put it up and run away out of fear. I was trying to decide on a good time to tell them that I was behind the whole thing, and I found the perfect opportunity because as it was only the second day of class, we hadn't done introductions yet. So when it came my turn to introduce myself, I introduced myself, and then I told them that I was the president of USC Students for Life, and that I had helped put up the display. The professor was shocked, and she started laughing, and she couldn't stop. She said, oh, this is just too good, and so I just basically waited for her to stop laughing, and luckily she gave me a chance to explain. So I explained why I was pro-life, I explained the display, and I answered some of their concerns. And it turned out to be a really good discussion that we had in the class, and I was able to hear their viewpoints, and they were able to hear mine, so I was really glad that that turned out okay. The thing that bothered me the most, though, was that the professor just assumed that she could put up this picture and that she could mock it and assume that everyone in the class would agree with her. I'm sure she would not have been so bold in mocking it if she had known that I was the one behind it. Later on in the evening, when two of my friends and I were coming to take down the display, we came upon two girls in the process of tearing it down. The posters were crumpled in the trash can, and they were in the process of ripping up the white hearts. One girl I recognized because she was a prominent liberal activist on campus, and she also held a leadership position in USG. She left pretty soon after we had come upon them, but the second girl was really angry. She was yelling. She yelled at us for a few minutes before finally walking away. And she eventually came back to apologize, and it ended up really good with her because we had a conversation with her for about a half an hour, and she told us her concerns with the display, and we were able to explain, and I think she came away with a good understanding of our viewpoint. So I think that was really a success with her. And for the other girl, since I had recognized her, I knew her a little bit, I ended up emailing her, and so we met a different day a couple weeks later, and we talked about it as well. So I was able to have some good conversations with those girls, and I'm really glad that we were able to just talk it out and let each other know where we stood so that we could each understand each other's positions. So definitely a lot of good came out of that whole situation. I just want to end by pointing out an interesting observation that a friend of my uncle's once made. He is a professor at Cal State Northridge, and he was asking me once about the climate on campus and the biases with which I come into contact every day. I told him that I had been blessed because for the most part, with a few obvious exceptions, most of my professors were very neutral and did a good job presenting both sides of any given issue. Although I mentioned that I had found out during the semester that most of them did hold liberal and atheistic views. My uncle's friend then asked an interesting question. Maybe they do a good job hiding their liberal views during class, but are there even any conservative professors on campus? Does the university hire conservative professors? The question made me think for a moment. Although I do know a couple conservative professors on campus, I realized that it's still problematic for free speech and free thought when only one side of the political and social spectrum is even represented among the faculty. What does it do to the students when they realize that all of their professors think one way? The university is supposed to be a place where the free exchange of ideas can take place. And how is that possible when there's no one among the faculty who can speak from the heart about conservative values? So that's why it's up to us as conservative students to speak up about our beliefs and impact our peers. I've learned that you never know how just speaking up can impact people, and I've had students come up to me after class and tell me that I brought up a really interesting point that they had never heard before. So it's so important to know what you believe, why you believe it, and to be able to articulate that. And so I encourage all you students out there to keep working, and I'm so glad that you're all here because it's definitely a sign that you're all active in your conservatism. So thank you.
We do have time for a few questions. If anybody would like to ask these ladies some questions about their campuses, about themselves. I have some questions that I would like to start with. It's always helpful for us to know what's being talked about on campus because it does vary quite widely. So this is a question I ask students a lot. So if you could, each of you, if you have something you want to add to this question, if you could tell us a little bit about what the hot button issues are on your campus these days and how students and faculty are addressing those. It's a tough question.
I can go first.
Go, Andrea.
Oh, well, one of the things on my campus that was a very big deal last semester and a little bit now is there was a proposed smoking ban that came from the administration and our chancellor was talking about it, and it was going to be a very quick thing. It seemed that the University of Illinois system was going to move forward and just pass this without really any input from students or thinking about what this policy might do. And so that was a very big deal and nobody was really talking about it and it was just going to happen. So I kind of worked with a group of conservative students and not all of us were smokers. I think there was only one, but we just found it a little alarming that the administration would just put forth such a very large policy without any student input. So we addressed it, we fought it, we brought it up, we went to SGA meetings and we talked about it because we thought that this was an issue of control. So that was a very big topic and I mean, it was just something that a lot of students didn't know was happening. And once we brought it up, once we put posters, once we showed up to meetings, more and more students knew about it and wanted to have their input.
Anyone else? Any national issues that are talked about on your campus on a regular basis?
Guns. For you all that aren't aware, VSU has had many student deaths in the last 2 to 3 years. We had a student die in our residence halls. We had a student stabbed on the pedestrian mall. We've had a ton of things happen, and our president decided to attend a meeting where he would decide whether we could carry guns on campus, and this was without students' consent. He said no. So that's a big topic on our campus right now.
I think a big topic on our campus is sexual assault and basically sexuality in general, and I think it's really good, first of all, that our university is trying to address sexual assault, but I feel like they're going about it in the wrong way, and a lot of the, especially Women's Student Assembly and other student groups, are addressing it by, they're not realizing that it might be tied to the hookup culture or that there's definitely a relationship there, and so they're promoting, sexual freedom, and they have sex carnivals at school, and, they're really just promoting this hookup culture unashamedly, and they don't realize that there are implications to that. And so that's definitely been a big thing on our campus. Yeah.
For my campus, I'm taking a public opinion and voting class right now, and we took a class survey that they displayed on the screen the second week. And most of the students, if you're liberal, you're very liberal. If you're conservative, you're very conservative. But the rest were that moderate voter or apolitical. And that teacher does present both sides, or tries to present very well. And a graduate student instructor from that class told one of our discussion sections that they're actually trying to be better about not taking one position because they lost funding from the American Political Science Association. So that has caused them to present both sides fairly because they're trying to bring that funding back. As for, and I have another class, campaign strategy. It's taught by an independent who was just running for California State Secretary, Dan Schnur, and he worked on McCain's presidential campaign, and he also does his best to try to present both sides. But the students, it's almost assumed that you're liberal, and you just, when you want to speak up in class, you know, everyone kind of gives you that look, even though we respect your view. But otherwise, our campus has been in the news for the anti-Semitism, especially this past month. There was, they always want to try to boycott, divest, and sanctions from Israel. But a couple weeks ago, the Students for Justice in Palestine group and the Muslim Student Association got in front of the courtyard and started chanting, "Intifada, Intifada, we support the Intifada." That is when the Palestinians were fighting the Israelis with suicide bombers and rockets a couple years ago. And so that is what we faced. It's very difficult for the Jewish students. They wanted to take away study abroad trips to Israel. They just like everything to be one-sided in their way.
Mm-hmm. Any questions? Oh, Michelle has a question.
I'm just wondering if any of you ladies have taken a women's studies course. Sometimes you're forced to. There's a requirement. And if there's any chance that any woman was praised other than a liberal or a left-wing woman.
I had to take one for like a global awareness requirement, and it was all, most of it was taught from what was called like a neo-Marxist perspective, and there was no talk of any kind of conservative women or conservative role models.
Any other questions? We have a question right down here. Oh, wait for the microphone so we can catch you on the video.
The students in California, Governor Brown recently signed the Yes Means Yes, where when you're dating and you become intimate, you have to agree at each step. Does this mean you'll be passing out contracts? I'd like your perspective, opinion on that.
I don't really know how our campus is going to be handling that, but I think, again, I think it really comes back to really the men just need to respect the women and women need to respect themselves. And I think that people have really lost that sense, and instead it's just they're doing everything just for their own pleasure, and they don't really have a sense of the future or of their own respect. And so I mean, that's what I would say. I don't know. I honestly don't know how that's going to be handled, but...
Michelle has a good one.
What's amazing to me is that the left and the liberals have created this environment where there are some horrible assaults and all. I mean, co-ed dormitories, co-ed bathrooms, bowls of condoms, you know, as the freshman girls walk in, sex fairs, V-Day, sex-themed coursework, and a campus culture that teaches responsibility-free sex as a form of entertainment for both men and women. And then they act surprised when there's some outrages that occur. They created the environment, and now, as the left and government always says, they're going to fix it with an idiot law where before you kiss a girl, is it okay? Is it okay? I mean, it's beyond comprehension. And President Obama's in on this, and Biden, and it's all about how can we fix the mess that we made. It's outrageous.
Oh, there's one back there.
Okay, so I'm wondering if when you guys, this is so sad, but came out as a conservative on your campus, because we've all eventually done that or we will at some point. Did you guys lose friends out of curiosity?
I had more of it actually stemmed this semester after interning with Clare Luce, and I had more of my friends say, oh, I'm just a moderate. And I'm thinking, you just mean you stand for nothing, so you fall for anything. Because they were so intimidated by my passion for conservatism, they just wanted to stand back. Not so much of not be my friend, but don't talk to Nicole about politics.
Not sure if I've lost friends, but I've made friends with people who think differently, and they told me after we became friends that, wow, originally I wasn't sure that we could be friends or get along because I knew you were like that token conservative girl. So it definitely affected their opinion of me from the beginning.
Yeah, I would say I don't think I lost any friends who were like close friends. Definitely like a lot of acquaintances, like they just weren't interested in being my friend anymore. But I think the important thing is to surround yourself with like-minded people. And so when I started our USC Students for Life Club, I had like a core group of like 3 others and myself, and they became like, they're still to this day my best friends. And so just getting those friends who think alike is really important.
I just made my own friends right away when I got there, and I found the people that I wanted to be friends with, and then with acquaintances who don't think ideologically like me, we just respectfully agree to disagree on things.
We have several.
What are your individual majors that you're taking right now?
English and political science.
Legal studies, political science.
Political science and media studies.
During undergrad, I majored in philosophy, and now I'm doing my credential and master's degree in education.
I would just like to say to these incredible, incredible young women that possibly losing friends will be a lifelong journey for you. My husband and I, 7 years ago, moved into a community of 1,500 homes, and it's an active adult community. You have to be over 55 to live there. My husband was, I wasn't at the time. But anyway, it's very active. You have lots of clubs, lots of social events and all that. And I have met women and men in those groups that I enjoyed and had things we thought, family, children, things in common with. But when they found out that I was a strong conservative and had values that they didn't share, they no longer wanted to socialize with me. So that will be a lifelong journey that you will be living through. But those of you that have found that it is best to surround yourself with those that you are compatible with is really the best thing to do, like I have done right here with finding my dear friends. So I don't want you to be upset about it or discouraged, because you can find a place for yourself.
A couple of questions. One, I'd like to know what each one of you wants to be doing in 5 years from now. And you mentioned the word intimidation. I'm wondering what the impact of each of you has been in your individual classrooms. I'm also wondering if you have ever felt that your grades have suffered because of your position, and really how verbal, how open are you in the classroom? Does everybody know, And I just feel like, I know that one person makes a difference. You just being in a room makes a difference, even if it's a classroom. And I'm just wondering what your personal experience is about your place as a conservative in a liberal environment like that.
Let's start with the first part of that question. What do you want to be in 5 years?
Graduating law school and hopefully practicing in some form.
I'd like to be graduating law school as well. I'd like to work my way into maybe regulatory or administrative law. I'd like to kind of tear apart like regulations. That's what I aspire to do.
Graduating law school and/or working in public policy, and maybe finding a husband.
I'd like to be an elementary school teacher and also maybe finding a husband.
Oh, can we go to the second part of the question? Your classroom experiences.
We just had a debate 2 weeks ago about Israel and Palestine. And my professor tried to say that Israel was in the wrong, you know, the typical liberal stance, and that the land was for the Palestinians. And I said, well, I don't know what Bible you're reading. Clearly, that is not correct. And she didn't like it, but she was just like, okay, next topic.
It varies from professor to professor, but I think it's interesting now that, because my campus is pretty small, I'm kind of known as, like, you know, as a commodity, like, oh, the conservative girl. So they actually look to me when they want, like, a conservative viewpoint. I was running late to class one day, and I got there, and my professor was like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you're here. We're about to talk about gun rights, and I need a conservative perspective. So sometimes it's difficult, but a lot of professors now kind of want to, like, you know, they want to hear from a conservative, because there's not many of us.
I think another key is pick your battles. Sometimes the stuff they say isn't even worth raising your hand up for, because it's so you don't even know what to say back, because it's not even a logical debate. Other times, you know, I'll come up to the professor in office hours or talk, can I clarify a point that you said, and then they try to, you know, elaborate where they were coming from. So yeah.
For me, it just depends on the class, and since I was a philosophy major, I had several classes which, like one including a philosophy class on social and moral issues, and so that one I was like definitely speaking up a lot, and that class I took as a freshman, and it really forced me to know what I believe, and that's when I found out, like, I really need to know my stuff if I'm going to be speaking to the rest of the class and trying to articulate it well. So that was really beneficial. I think it helped me to like better know what I believe, to be able to talk about that. And then the gender studies class was definitely one that I was speaking out a lot. So it just depends on the class. And like I said, it impacts students in ways that, like, you may never know. And so I have had students come up to me afterwards and say, like, oh, you brought up a really interesting point, and I never would have thought of that, and I don't necessarily agree, but it was good to hear. And so, like, they might never say that during class, but it's nice to hear afterwards, so.
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I'm a lifelong conservative, and so I have made a lot of friends in the conservative movement, but I hate to say, most of my best friends, the women who were my closest friends, turned out to vote for Obama. And it just threw me. So recently, in fact, last week, my good friend in New Hampshire called me, and when we were done talking about everything else, I said, so I suppose you're going to support Hillary Clinton for president? And she said, well, I really like Elizabeth Warren. No. And I said, why is that? Why do you support Elizabeth Warren? Because I have found, ladies, that instead of my preaching to people my beliefs, it's very smart to ask questions of them and make them do the studying as to what is it that I'm really believing? How can I believe this way? So she said, well, she just has the right kind of thoughts, you know, and right kind of policies. And I said, for instance? And she said, I'll have to get back to you on that. And I said, please do, because I want her to study and find out what that woman really is, not just Elizabeth Warren. So anyway, I do believe in asking questions of those who differ from you. And I will say that through the years, every election day, I get a lot of phone calls from people who maybe they are Republicans, maybe they're declines to state here in California, asking me how to vote on issues. And it's wonderful that they have listened to me sometime or got the impression that I'm the conservative angle in the area. So go to her. Thank you.
We have this last question.
I'm curious, especially you say liberal campus, and probably a lot of people voted for Obama maybe twice in a row. Has there been any discussion on the impact of some of the policies? And I'll say, for example, open borders. And you look at the impacts from an economic perspective, from a health perspective. We're having outbreaks across America of diseases that we haven't seen in a long time, and we've had people from over the border scattered across our communities. And then the national security implications of that we don't know who's here. Have topics like that come up, and also in the context because of the debate of what is the true value of citizenship? in this regard and rights? Has that come up in debate?
Not so much the immigration issue, but one issue that was talked about last year was with Obamacare. You know, a lot of people thought like, okay, this is going to be a great thing, but the student health insurance actually went up over like $100 at their school. So a lot of students were saying like, wait, why did this go up? I thought it was going to be free and we were going to like get more coverage. And that was a hot topic and people talked about it on campus.
At USC, we actually have our Institute of Politics puts on like bi-weekly, they're called student talkbacks, and so they'll have like one person from college Republicans, one person from college Democrats, and then like a community leader from each side talk about the issue. And so we have done those on immigration and Obamacare and other issues. So that actually has been really good, and they're two-sided, so students get to hear both sides, but they're not very well attended, I will say, so not very many people are hearing, but.
I attend a political science undergraduate colloquium. It's the class of about 700 students to which Babe Buchanan came, and that professor is wonderful, and he wants to, every week we have a different guest speaker. So when the Republicans come, only then do those issues arise.
We held a anti-Obamacare event on our campus, and we had one of our members dress up as Obama, and we allowed the students to take pictures with him, and we gave out prescriptions, and we said, it's free, so you can go ahead and have one. And we had this one socialist who told us, you can't tell people that the government shouldn't offer health care. And I said, yes, I can, because the Constitution doesn't say that. And he said, well, I think that is a mean stance for you to take. And I said, well, it's an honest stance to take.
Yeah, you're so mean, Nicole. That is all the time we have for this panel. I know there were some questions that didn't quite get answered, so make sure that you talk to these ladies. They're going to be here for the duration of the summit, and get to know some of the other students that are here as well. They all have pretty similar experiences on their campus and have a lot of things to say. So thank you, ladies, very much for being here.